Kia ora team, I'll be putting this reminder on all Kiwi Box videos. I have started a new channel, Big Boys Boxing. The link is in the description below, so make sure you get over, subscribe, check it out. So I'll be dropping the odd video here on Kiwi Box, but all of my new content goes on Big Boys Boxing, so be sure to get over there. Alright, enjoy.
Subscribe to Kiwi Box. That's the one. Yeah.
Kia ora team. So, as we know, over the weekend Luis Ortiz fought Christian Hammer and fought his way to a convincing victory. Personally, I gave Christian Hammer 2 rounds, and that's being generous. For me, Christian Hammer doesn't have enough volume to bother Luis Ortiz. However, you can see what he was trying to do. He was looking for that one big punch, and that's how he wins fights. Christian Hammer is waiting, using pretty good defense, throwing a big right hand bomb, sometimes a left hook. That's how he got Michelle Wallace out of there. Or the other way of looking at it is he wants fighters to throw a lot of punches, gas out, and he can still maintain his power without throwing volume for the later part of the fight. That's what he was trying to do against Ortiz, and he did land some good right hands on Ortiz. Didn't hurt him, but shook him up a few times. Maybe not quite what Luis Ortiz was expecting, but myself, I know Christian Hammer did have a rough start to his career, but he started taking his boxing a bit more seriously, and he has the potential to be a pretty decent gatekeeper. As we've seen, like I said, he beat Michelle Wallace, an unbeaten southpaw prospect that was coming up. He beat David Price. He can beat guys who don't belong at the top level of the heavyweight division. Whether Luis Ortiz underestimated it or not, I don't know. But out of interest, I cruised through a couple of LDBC channels as they love to big up Luis Ortiz, and Wilder himself, saying Luis Ortiz is some kind of killer because nobody wants to fight him. Now, there are reasons nobody wants to fight him. It's not necessarily because he's a killer, it's because he's not that marketable. He doesn't speak English, he doesn't bring a lot of hype to a fight, and there's never much money in a fight against Luis Ortiz. The only thing you can fight for against Ortiz is a ranking, but you can't do that with the WBA because he's still under suspension from them. So it's not just because he's a good fighter. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think Luis Ortiz is a pretty decent fighter, but a killer? No, I do not believe so. Now, when I cruise through these couple of Wilder fans channels, I've seen a couple of excuses for Luis Ortiz. It seems like a few of them think he's aged substantially in 12 months since he fought Deontay Wilder. So I went and compared the Christian Hammer fight with the Deontay Wilder fight, and a couple of things I noticed. Luis Ortiz's output in the later part of the fight was considerably lower. Now, I don't know if that's because of age and him not having as much stamina, but I think some of it has to do with the fact that he's a very good counterpuncher and he throws a lot when the other people are throwing against him. However, Christian Hammer wasn't throwing a lot, so it could come down to somewhat styles that stopped Ortiz throwing. But also, Christian Hammer was countering, and he was having the most success with his big bomb right hand countering Luis Ortiz. So Luis Ortiz didn't want to pull the trigger with his left hand as much because he was getting bombs dropped on him when he did so. So We know Luis Ortiz is a good counterpuncher, but when I was comparing the two fights, Luis Ortiz was a hell of a lot more aggressive coming forward against Deontay Wilder. So he's not only a counterpuncher. That's determined by the comparison. He can come forward, put pressure on, and throw bombs. Set traps for his big left hand. But he didn't do that against Christian Hammer. Because Christian Hammer's a better counterpuncher than Deontay Wilder. Put it that way. So, the other thing I noticed between the two fights, and this comes with regard to stamina as well. Luis Ortiz was not moving as much against Deontay Wilder, but he was moving and using angles a lot more against Christian Hammer. He was up on his toes later in the fight a lot more than he was against Deontay Wilder. Maybe it's not his stamina, because that's not a trait of somebody who's tired in a fight. You don't move well when you're tired. You don't get up on your toes much when you're tired. So I don't believe that he was that tired against Christian Hammer. To a degree, it seems he didn't quite know how to work out Christian Hammer. He was never in any danger of losing that fight. The volume that he was putting out was much higher than Christian Hammer, and he was landing a lot more than Christian Hammer. Therefore, he could afford to sit back and take his time, pop that jab, because the jab was scoring a lot of points against Christian Hammer. So, I don't think he was tired. That's also not a trait of somebody who's aged substantially in the last 12 months. So I think there is no excuses for Luis Ortiz to have not looked like a killer. You get what I'm saying here? I don't think Luis Ortiz has aged 10 years in 12 months. I think Luis Ortiz was just never that elite in the first place. It comes back to, who's Luis Ortiz beaten? That's of note. Tony Thompson and Bryant Jennings. Bryant Jennings was a world title challenger quite some time ago. Was it 2014 or something like that? But realistically, Bryant Jennings has never been a world beater. He hasn't got huge power. He's a very good boxer. At elite level, he could possibly beat some guys on points, but I don't see him knocking out many guys at the very top level. And then I saw on an LDBC channel, sorry. Well, how can you say who's he beaten when nobody wants to fight him? Well, at elite level, we don't really have an assessment, do we? We have Deontay Wilder as his only elite level fighter, and we call Deontay Wilder an elite level fighter because he is a champion. He knocks guys out, but it's well versed around social media. Deontay Wilder doesn't have a lot of boxing skill. He throws open-handed punches a lot of the time, which is actually illegal. He doesn't have great footwork. He doesn't have a lot of things. He has a big right hand and a pretty decent left hook that if he catches you with, more often than not, it's night-night. He gets by on his power. So, what I'm saying here is, if Luis Ortiz faced an elite level boxer, just for argument's sake, guys like a Dillian White, like a Tyson Fury, like a Kurat Pulev, like a Joseph Parker, like a... shit, you could even say Adam Kalnacki at the moment. Anthony Joshua. I think all of those guys would beat Luis Ortiz. So where does that put Luis Ortiz in the scheme of things? For me, that puts him between number 10 and number 15. So, I challenge you to go and look at both of those fights. The Deontay Wilder versus Luis Ortiz fight and the Christian Hammer fight against Luis Ortiz. Make some comparisons for yourself and come back, drop some comments. Do you see anything substantially better in the Luis Ortiz versus Deontay Wilder fight than the Christian Hammer fight? And also, do you see anything substantially better in the Christian Hammer fight than the Deontay Wilder fight? You make a comparison, come back and let me know, because I think this is an interesting conversation to talk about. I don't think Luis Ortiz has aged that much in the 12 months since he fought Deontay Wilder. I think that excuse is absolute bullshit to try and make some fans' favourite fighter sound better. Hope you've enjoyed the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Give me the thumbs up and I'll catch you in the next one. Big Boys Boxing, we out. See you.
Zone beats, boy.